Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Ryan. If you've ever felt nervous or stuck when trying to speak English, you're not alone, and you're in the right place. Whether you're on your way to work, doing chores at home, or just taking a break, we're glad you're here. This podcast is for everyday people who want to speak real, confident English, not the kind from old grammar books, but the way real people actually talk.
And I'm Priya, your co-host and English learning buddy. We know how hard it can be to speak fluently, especially when you feel like you're always translating in your head. That's why today, we're diving into how you can start speaking natural English that feels easy and sounds real. No boring rules, just practical tips you can use right away.
We'll talk about why grammar isn't enough, what you should focus on instead, and how to start sounding more like a native speaker. This is real talk about real English. So if you're tired of feeling stuck, we're going to help you move forward, step by step.
And don't worry, we'll keep it simple. You won't need fancy words or perfect sentences to get started. Our goal is to help you speak English that feels real and confident, like you're just chatting with a friend. Let's get started.
So we just talked about why speaking real English matters, and now let's get into what real English actually is. A lot of learners think they're learning English, but it's often the kind of English that sounds stiff or too formal. Real English is what people speak in everyday life. It's casual, simple, and often full of short, natural expressions. You probably won't find it in grammar books. Think about it. How often do you say, "I am going to the store," compared to just, "I'm gonna head to the store"? That's real English, and that's what we want to help you speak.
Exactly. And here's where many learners get stuck. They focus so much on grammar rules and perfect sentences that when it's time to actually talk, they freeze. They might know a lot of vocabulary or understand written English well, but speaking, that's where the trouble starts. And it's not their fault. Most schools and courses teach you how to pass tests, not how to speak naturally in real conversations. The result? You end up sounding like a textbook, not a real person. It can be super frustrating.
Totally. Let's take a simple example. When someone asks, "How are you?" what's the usual reply in real life? People don't say, "I'm fine, thank you, and you," like in a classroom. You're more likely to hear, "I'm good," or even just "not bad." And instead of asking, "How are you?" many people just say, "What's up?" or "How's it going?" These are everyday English phrases, things native speakers use all the time. If you want to sound natural, these are the expressions you need to notice and use.
Yes, and here's the good news. You don't have to throw away what you've learned. Grammar is still important, but it's not everything. Real fluency means knowing how people really talk. You learn to connect, not just translate. And real English has rhythm. It's full of contractions, connected speech, little phrases like, kind of, and I guess. These may seem small, but they make a big difference when you're speaking. Once you hear them often enough, they'll start to feel natural.
And speaking of feeling natural, real English isn't always about perfect words. It's about tone, confidence, and knowing when to keep it simple. Native speakers don't always use big words. They often use short, common phrases. That's why listening is such a big part of learning to speak well. You don't need fancy grammar. You need flow. And the only way to get that is to tune into real conversations and pick up the patterns.
Right, and here's something we've seen over and over. The learners who start sounding fluent and confident, they usually have one small habit they practice daily. It's something anyone can do, whether you live in an English-speaking country or not. And this one habit can shift your speech from robotic to real. What is it? Well, we'll tell you in segment 3, but first, let's dig into another piece that makes all the difference. Now that we understand what real English sounds like, let's talk about something super common, grammar. Most learners think if they master grammar, they'll speak fluent English, but that's not how it works. Grammar helps with structure, sure. It tells you where the subject goes, how to form questions, and things like that. But when native speakers talk, they don't think, okay, subject, verb, object. They just speak, fast, natural, and often breaking grammar rules without even noticing.
Exactly. Think about it this way. Grammar is like the skeleton of a sentence. But speaking fluently, that's the muscle, the voice, the rhythm. Real English isn't just about following rules. It's about using common chunks, expressions, and sounding natural. For example, we say, "let me see," instead of "let me see," or "give me a minute," instead of "give me a minute." These aren't wrong, they're just real. If you only focus on grammar, you'll end up sounding stiff, and that's not how people talk in real life.
Right. I've met so many learners who write beautiful English and score well on exams, but when they speak, it's slow and awkward. Why? Because they try to build every sentence in their head before saying it. They're thinking about rules, not rhythm. Fluency doesn't mean perfect grammar. It means smooth, confident, natural speech. And most of the time, that comes from knowing which phrases go together, what we call chunks, and hearing them often.
Yeah, and these chunks are the secret sauce. Native speakers don't say, "I will call you later" every time. They say, "I'll call you later," or "I'll let you know." It rolls off the tongue because they've said it thousands of times. When you learn these little phrase blocks, you don't need to stop and think. You just say them. That's why someone with basic grammar but lots of listening can speak better than someone who knows all the rules but rarely speaks or listens.
And honestly, one big mistake learners make is thinking they need to speak in full, perfect sentences. But native speakers often don't. If you ask me, "Want to grab lunch?" I might just say, "Sure," or "Let's go," or "Give me 10. That's real English. You don't always need a subject and a verb. Sometimes just the tone and timing do the work. If you're waiting to be perfect before speaking, you'll be waiting forever.
So now the question is, if grammar isn't enough and real English is built on rhythm, phrases, and flow, how do native speakers actually learn to speak that way? What's the process that makes it automatic for them? That's what we're going to look at next. And there's something they do without even realizing it that can completely transform how you learn to speak fluently too. So now that we've seen why grammar alone won't get you speaking fluently, let's look at what will. This part is a game changer for most learners. If you've been learning English word by word, that's probably slowing you down. Real English isn't built word by word. It's built in phrases, also called chunks. These are small groups of words that go together naturally, like make a decision, take a break, or at the end of the day. Native speakers don't think of these as separate words, they just know them as one piece.
Yes, this is called chunk learning, and it's how you can start sounding more natural without thinking too much. Let me give you an example. A lot of learners say do a decision, but native speakers say make a decision. Why? Because make and decision just go together in English. That's a collocation, a pair of words that usually appear together. If you learn English this way, in groups, you'll speak faster and with more confidence. It's like playing music. You don't play one note at a time, right? You play in patterns.
Exactly. That's such a great example. When I was teaching in a classroom, I noticed something interesting. Students who studied vocabulary lists often paused more when speaking. But those who practiced with full phrases like, "let me check," or "I don't feel like it," could speak much more smoothly. They weren't translating in their heads, they were just repeating chunks they'd heard and practiced. And that's how real English works. It's not about knowing fancy words, it's about knowing the right phrases.
And here's something simple you can do today. Start building a phrase book instead of a vocabulary list. Don't just write down the word break, write down the whole phrase, take a break. Not just decision, but make a decision. Trust me, this one switch will change how you speak. When you need to say something in real life, your brain won't search for grammar rules. It'll just pull out a ready-made phrase and boom, you speak without thinking.
Also, when you watch movies, listen to podcasts, or hear someone talking in English, start noticing which words stick together. Don't just write them down randomly. Write them as a set, like get in touch, a bit of trouble, or by the way. That's how natives speak, and that's how you can sound like one too. Just by collecting these small chunks, you'll build your fluency. No need to memorize boring rules.
And we're just scratching the surface here. In fact, in segment 6, we're going to share 3 specific phrase sets that native speakers use all the time, ones that'll instantly level up your conversations. But for now, just remember, learning phrases, not just words, is one of the smartest shifts you can make if you want to speak real English.
Now that we've talked about learning phrases, let's get into something many learners struggle with: how to actually practice speaking, especially if you don't have a native English partner.
The good news? You don't need one to get started. One of the most powerful tools out there is called shadowing. It's simple. You listen to someone speaking real English on YouTube, Netflix, or even a podcast, and you repeat what they say right after them, matching their tone, speed, and rhythm. You don't just copy the words, you copy the music of the language.
Shadowing is seriously underrated. I've had students who improved fast just by doing this 10 minutes a day. The trick is not to pause and think, just listen and repeat. Pick a short video clip, like a scene from a movie or a fun YouTube skit. Then play one sentence, pause it, and repeat exactly how the speaker said it. Don't worry if you mess up, that's normal. What matters is that your mouth gets used to forming natural English sounds. It's like singing along with a song, but for your speaking skills.
And here's another powerful method. Record yourself. I know, it feels awkward at first, but trust me, recording and listening to yourself is eye-opening. Just grab your phone, say a few sentences in English, then play it back, and compare it to how a native speaker says it. You'll start noticing where your pronunciation is off or where your rhythm sounds unnatural. It's like coaching yourself. You'll actually hear your progress week by week if you do this regularly.
Another simple trick is self-talk. Sounds funny, but it works like magic. When you're cooking, cleaning, or walking somewhere, just describe what you're doing out loud in English. For example, I'm chopping onions now, or I need to go to the store after this. It keeps your brain active in English without needing a partner, and it builds confidence because you're using real, everyday phrases. Plus, it turns boring moments into practice time, which is a win-win.
And here's a bonus. Use voice notes. You already have the tool in your pocket, your phone. Record short messages to yourself every day. Say what you did today, what your goals are, or even tell a story. Over time, you'll build a voice diary that shows how much your fluency is improving. It's not about being perfect, it's about building the habit. And when you go back and listen after a few weeks, you'll be amazed at the difference.
All of these strategies, shadowing, recording, self-talk, voice notes, they're simple but incredibly effective. And the best part? You don't need a classroom, a teacher, or even a study partner. You just need your voice and a little consistency. In the next segment, we'll take this even deeper and look at why you keep freezing during real conversations and how to stop that for good. So we've just covered how to practice speaking, even without a native partner. Now let's look at something that takes your English from correct to natural, the rhythm. Real English isn't just about words, it's about how the words are said. Native speakers use intonation, stress, and flow to show meaning. For example, when someone says, "really," depending on the tone, it can mean surprise, doubt, or even sarcasm. Learning this rhythm helps you sound more like a native and less like a robot.
Exactly. I always tell my students, English is like music. You've got to feel the beat, not just say the lyrics. You can take the exact same sentence and change the meaning with your tone. Try this as a practical drill. Pick a short dialogue from a show or podcast. Don't just repeat the words. Listen to how the voice rises, where it falls, when it speeds up or slows down. Then try to mimic it like an actor would. Don't worry about sounding silly. That's part of learning the feel of English.
Yes, and don't rush it. Just take 1 or 2 lines at a time. For example, listen to the way someone says, "Are you okay?" It might rise like, "Are you okay?" if they're worried, or drop like, "Are you okay?" if they're annoyed. These small differences tell you how someone feels, not just what they're saying. If you only focus on grammar, you'll miss this. But if you train your ear, you'll start picking it up without even realizing it.
Here's something fun to try. When you're watching a movie or listening to a podcast, mute the words in your mind and just focus on the melody of the voice. Ask yourself, is this rising or falling? Is the speaker calm, angry, excited? This helps you learn the emotional layer of English. The rhythm carries feelings. And when you copy that, you don't just speak English, you communicate in English.
And that's what makes people stop and say, "Wow, your English sounds really good." It's not because you used fancy vocabulary, it's because your voice feels right. Real conversations are full of rhythm.
So if you want to sound fluent, spend time listening and copying not just the words, but the flow. Think of it like dancing. At first, it feels off, but with practice, your moves get smoother.
This one shift, focusing on rhythm instead of just vocabulary, can seriously transform your fluency. You'll understand native speakers better, and they'll understand you better too. Now, if you've ever felt stuck mid-sentence or forgotten a word during a conversation, don't worry. We're diving into that next. We'll share what causes that freeze and how to break through it.
So now that we've explored rhythm and how English feels, let's talk about something just as powerful, phrases that real people actually use. This is where you shift from textbook mode to sounding natural and relaxed. Like, instead of saying, "it's okay," natives often say, "no worries." Same meaning, but way more casual. Or, instead of "I am fine," we say, "I'm good." Simple swaps like that can change how confident and fluent you sound instantly.
Totally. And here's another one. We don't really say, "I am going now." Most people would say, "I'm heading out." It's small changes like this that help you fit into everyday English conversations. When you use phrases people hear all the time, it makes you sound like you belong, like you've got it. So next time you're about to speak, ask yourself, is this how someone would actually say it in real life?
Exactly. And what's cool is, these aren't hard to learn. You hear them in shows, podcasts, or even on the street. The trick is to notice them. Start a little phrase book on your phone. Write down things like, "What are you up to?" instead of "What are you doing?" Or "It's up to you" instead of "You decide." These are natural English phrases people use every single day, and they'll boost your fluency without needing fancy grammar.
Let's talk about connectors. These are little words that help your sentences flow, and they're gold. For example, by the way, you know, and actually. You'll hear these all the time. Like, by the way, have you seen that movie? Or actually, I'm not sure about that. They make your speech sound smoother, more natural, and they buy you time to think while still keeping the conversation going. Native speakers love them.
And the best part? These phrases don't just sound cool. They make conversations easier. You're not stopping to build sentences word by word. You're speaking in chunks with ready-made expressions. That's what native speakers do. It's not about perfect grammar. It's about using phrases that work in real life with real people. And once you start using them, your confidence goes way up because you're finally speaking real English.
But here's a heads up. There's one phrase that English learners use way too often, and it instantly shows you're not a native. It's polite, but it doesn't sound natural. And in segment 7, we'll break it down and show you what to say instead that feels way more fluent.
All right, so we've covered everyday phrases that make you sound like a native. But let's be honest, there are also some habits that instantly give away you're not a native speaker. One big one, overusing words like very, really, and nice. I get it, they're easy and safe, but they're also kind of bland. Instead of very good, try awesome, fantastic, or amazing. Instead of nice, try thoughtful, cool, or lovely. These small changes make your English feel more colorful and natural.
That's true. Another thing that holds people back is translating from their native language while speaking English. It's like trying to fit a puzzle piece that doesn't belong. The sentence might be grammatically right, but it just sounds off. For example, someone might say, "open the light" instead of "turn on the light." It's a direct translation, but it doesn't work in real English. So the key is to learn expressions, not just translate words one by one.
And here's another sneaky mistake, thinking too much before you speak. I've seen learners pause for a long time, trying to get every word perfect. But that actually makes your English sound less fluent. Fluency isn't about saying everything perfectly, it's about keeping the conversation going. You can fix that by thinking in ideas, not individual words. That way, your speech flows more naturally, and you won't freeze up in the middle of a sentence.
Exactly. And one simple way to keep your flow is to use fillers the right way. Native speakers do this all the time. Words like "well," "let me think," or even "you know" help you keep talking while you organize your thoughts. Just make sure not to overuse them,
But trust me, a well-placed, that's interesting, sounds way more fluent than going totally silent or panicking mid-sentence.
Let's be clear, making mistakes is totally normal, but learning to spot the patterns that hold you back is a game changer. Weak vocabulary, direct translations, long pauses, they all make your English feel robotic. But when you work around them, your spoken English gets stronger, smoother, and a lot more confident. The goal isn't perfection, it's sounding real.
And speaking of sounding real, in the next segment, we'll show you how to build your fluency every single day, even if you only have 15 minutes. We'll give you one daily routine that fluent English speakers use without even realizing it. Stick around. It's simple, powerful, and you can start using it today.
Finally, let's talk about something every learner wants: how to build real confidence in speaking English and keep improving every day. We've already talked about the mistakes and the phrases, but confidence? That's the whole mindset. First thing to remember, it's absolutely okay to make mistakes. You don't need to be perfect. The goal is to connect with others, to share your thoughts, not to speak flawless English. That shift in thinking takes a lot of pressure off and makes learning more fun.
Exactly. And the best way to build that confidence is simple. Speak every day. Even if it's just 5 minutes, that daily practice adds up big time. Try to create a little English environment around you. Change your phone's language settings to English, follow fun English channels online, or just talk to yourself about your day. It might feel a bit strange at first, but it helps your brain get used to real English naturally. Plus, you're improving your spoken English every day without needing a native partner.
Here's a little secret that makes learning addictive and keeps you motivated: micro wins. This is what we teased at the very start of our episode. Try tracking one new phrase or chunk you use daily. Maybe today it's "no worries," and tomorrow it's "by the way." Every time you use something new, you're building your fluency and sounding more like a native speaker. These small wins keep you going and make speaking English feel like a real achievement.
I love that. And don't forget, confidence grows with each step. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small. When you focus on improving your fluency bit by bit, it all adds up quickly. And guess what? Speaking English will start feeling less like a challenge and more like a natural part of your life. Keep practicing, stay curious, and remember, every word you speak brings you closer to sounding like a native.
All right, that brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope you found these tips practical and easy to apply. Remember, speaking real English is about practice, mindset, and using everyday phrases that natives actually say. Thanks so much for spending time with us on Speak Up. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends who want to improve their English too.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Keep speaking, keep learning, and keep shining. We'll see you in the next episode with more ways to help you sound natural, confident, and fluent. Until then, take care and be happy speaking English.